The only war Putin is winning is the one inside Donald Trump's head. Those words, spoken by historian Timothy Snyder, are more than just a clever turn of phrase. They point to a deeper truth, a disturbing one. Because if Putin is winning anything right now, it may not be on the battlefield, but in the minds of people far from the front lines. This isn't just a war of tanks and trenches anymore. It's a psychological war, a political war, one fought through misinformation, manipulation, and the slow erosion of public resolve. Today, we're peeling back the curtain, not just on the battlefield in Ukraine, but on the entire system of power, propaganda, and pressure surrounding it. Because what happens in Ukraine will echo far beyond Kiev or Moscow. It may decide the shape of Europe and the role of democracy for decades to come. Let's begin with a moment that speaks volumes. At the White House, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was abruptly dismissed. The planned joint press conference with Donald Trump cancelled. The message was icy and direct. Come back when you're ready to make peace. Peace in this context meant something very different. It meant concessions, capitulation, possibly even surrender. Trump later doubled down. Ukraine isn't winning. Why didn't they fight back in 2014? Statements like that ripple far beyond cable news. They signal to both allies and enemies that Ukraine's support isn't guaranteed, that the clock might be ticking on American backing. But even within Trump's own circle, voices pushed back. Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, a former national security advisor under Trump, responded bluntly, "Russia isn't winning either." So, who's right? Who's actually gaining ground? The reality on the ground is complex but critical to understand. Ukraine faces enormous challenges. That much is obvious. But those challenges are not the same as defeat. John Hardy of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies summarizes it clearly. The situation is not great, but not catastrophic either. Since late 2022, Russia's advances have been far more modest than they appear. Despite months of brutal offensives, they've taken only two significant towns, Bakhmut and Avdiivka. The rest? Small villages, often razed to rubble before occupation. Each of those gains has come at staggering cost. Russian forces have suffered heavy losses in men and materiel, far outpacing Ukraine's even when Kiev is on the defensive. Without consistent US support, Ukraine can't launch large-scale counteroffensives. But Russia's own offensives have become predictable, slow, and increasingly ineffective. Each attempt to push forward feels more like a meat grinder than a military campaign. Meanwhile, Russia is paying a price it can't afford. Inside the country, even pro-government voices are beginning to crack. Modest Kolarov, a former Kremlin advisor and loyal nationalist, said openly, "We've lost this battle. Russia is now a pale shadow of its imperial past." And that's not just rhetoric. The numbers back it up. Russian ammunition depots are running dry. Older Soviet-era tanks and artillery are being dragged out of long-term storage. Many are rusted, outdated, or non-functional. New recruits? They're fewer in number, older in age, and increasingly unmotivated. A large percentage of the troops mobilized in 2022 are still stuck on the front lines. They've had little rest. No rotation, no escape. A second wave of mobilization could spark massive unrest. Already thousands have fled to avoid conscription. If Moscow announces another draft, it could trigger a new wave of panic and possibly protest. There's been talk of support from North Korea. Some reports even mention up to 100,000 troops. But even if that's true, it would barely make up for 3 months of Russian losses. It's a bandage on a severed artery. And then there's the artillery war. In 2024 alone, Ukraine claims to have destroyed more than 3,600 Russian tanks. Neutral military analysts estimate a more conservative figure, around 1,400. Even that is devastating. What's replacing those tanks? Not advanced systems. Mostly they're pulling old T-62s and T-55s out of storage, machines built during the Cold War. Russia's artillery, bolstered by North Korean munitions, has volume, but not precision. Blind shells, poorly mixed explosive loads, a high rate of duds, quantity without quality, firepower without accuracy, and the economic toll. It's only getting worse. Russia's central bank has hiked interest rates to 21% to contain inflation. Prices are rising. Imports are shrinking. Consumer confidence is crumbling. Yes, war production has temporarily boosted some economic indicators, but that's not real growth. That's a country eating itself to stay afloat, burning through reserves, not building for the future. Ukraine, by contrast, is playing the long game. It's no longer about sweeping counterattacks or quick liberation. It's about attrition, making each day more expensive for Russia to continue. Drone strikes on Russian oil refineries and infrastructure are crippling supply lines. Each attack disrupts logistics, fuels inflation, and damages morale. Every drone that reaches its target sends a clear message. This war won't end with a treaty. It will end when Russia can no longer afford it. Even Igor Girkin, the ultranationalist who helped launch the 2014 war in Donbas, now admits Ukraine has withstood Russia's full might for 3 years. Moscow will eventually need to treat Kyiv's position seriously. If Russia tries to mobilize again, we may see an internal collapse, slow or sudden. Unrest, draft dodging, economic panic. The fragile balance holding Putin's regime together could crack. Yes, Russia still has a few allies, North Korea, perhaps even lukewarm support from China, but these are transactional, not transformative. They cannot solve Russia's deeper problem. Its war machine is overheating, under-resourced, and increasingly desperate. And here's the critical point. If the United States and its allies apply sustained pressure, military, economic, diplomatic, right now, they may not need to force Russia to surrender. They may simply need to hold the line until Russia can no longer continue. This war isn't just a contest of soldiers and weapons. It's a battle of endurance, willpower, and resources. And Putin? He's running out of all three.